and welcome back to Sharks Happen. My name is Hal, I'm your host, going over shark attacks from the 1900s to present, mostly large sharks, and we'll get started in 1 minute. I wanted to bring up teamseas.org. Mr. Beast, a fellow YouTuber, has started to raise money for our oceans. They had already raised money to plant trees around the world. I believe they raised over $20 million, and they're planting trees everywhere while they turn their attention to the oceans and the seas. For as little as $1 donation, you can make a huge difference in the cleanliness of our waters. For every dollar donated, they are going to remove 1 pound of plastic. So a small donation makes a big difference, and if you're looking for a way to make a difference and help clean up our seas for ourselves and our shark friends, there you go, teamseas.org. Okay, we're going to start out. We're going to go over off of Mossel Bay, which is West Cape Province, South Africa. The date, June 24th, 1990. Monique Price, 21 years old, her and a friend and her fiance are going out, and they're going to retrieve an anchor. I believe that was left behind during a fishing competition, but they're going to dive and retrieve this anchor. They're in full gear with the tanks and the regulators, and they all three get 500 meters from shore. They anchor up and they fall off the back of the boat like you do, falling in reverse, and now they're all heading out. They're going to swim to the line that goes down to the anchor. They start swimming. The friend is in front. He's about 5 meters in front of Monique. Monique's fiance is about 7 meters behind her. It's just about 3:45 in the afternoon, and she's turned facing the ocean, so she's probably looking back at waiting for her fiance to catch up to her. And her feet are dangling down in the water. She's kind of wading, and the shark comes up and hits her, grabs her by the leg, lifts her up out of the water as the shark's head clears the water, and it falls sideways, taking her down in. Very quick attack. A couple seconds, she pops back up to the top of the water, screaming for help. They get her. She's 70 meters from the boat. I've seen some reports, so they had quite a ways to go to get her onto the boat. They tried to do a tourniquet on her leg with a weight belt, but that didn't work out too well. The shark had taken with just the one bite and grabbed her and removed the flesh, so removed her thigh from her hip all the way down to her knee, and that wound wraps around to the back of her leg, and it also ripped that chunk out of there. They said she lost 50% of her thigh meat in that one bite. She did have a abrasion on her right arm, like it hit the shark, and she had a little scratch on the inside of her leg. A lot of times the teeth make scratches above and below where they bite because of the rows of teeth. So scratches are not uncommon, but it's just the one bite. We're going to put that down as a fatality, no attempt to predate, and we will move on. And now we're going to head over to Aluka Beach, which is New South Wales, Australia. The date is September 10th, 2017. Abe McGrath, 35 years old. He and a buddy that everybody calls Hobbit, they're heading out at 6 in the morning to do some surfing. The beach is considered closed, so nobody's supposed to be out there, I guess. I don't know but they get out, and they're separated by 150 meters, the two of them, when this attack takes place. They don't say how deep or how far from shore it is. They say it's about 6:30. Abe is laying on his board, probably laying forward, waiting on a wave. Suddenly he's struck from underneath. Something hits the center of his board and sends him flying in the air. Breaks his board in two. He goes flying and comes back down into the water. And he looks, and there's a 10-foot great white, and it starts to circle, and then it disappears. So he grabs half of his board, and he just gets his ass into the shallow water. Stands up when he gets to shallow water, looks at Hobbit, and they both kind of laugh, and he says that he's shocked that he's still there. He did get a wound. The wetsuit was cut open on his hip, and it looks like one tooth gash, like the tooth went in there, and it's about 1 inch long, and it's a real straight slice. So I had first thought that he might have been injured by the board when it broke and sent him flying, but it looks like the tooth got him in the hip when he was going up there. So definite case of mistaken identity. 10-footers and them surfboards. This stuff is going to come up all the time, and it's going to be a one hit and leave almost all the time. So when it's that size, the bigger ones, they kind of will sit around and wait. They do different things, but the little ones, they're switching over from the fish to the mammals, and they're most likely to come up under your board like that and just nail you. We went over one in a show or two ago where the same size shark kind of got his arm in the board on his way up and flipping over his board, landing on his board and falling into the water. These sharks are when they're that size, they're basically testing out their hunting skills. And I'm sure they're shocked that when they hit a board, they're like, where's the meal I thought I was going to have? So those are true cases of mistaken identity, attack from a great white, and non-fatal, non-attempt to predate, and we'll move on. Okay, now we're going to head over off the coast of California, off Monastery Beach. The date, December 6th, 1986. Frank Gallo, 27 years old. He's doing some diving. He was diving with tanks, but he just removed his tank and he's free diving now, and it sounds like he's spearfishing. And he just come to the top of the boat and told his partner on the boat, hey, there's entrails down there. I'm going to go check and see what it was. So he goes down, gets about 20 or 30 feet away. He says he's just taking aim on a large black cod he found down there when he's hit hard. So he's hit by a shark on the move again. And just like with a couple of these other guys, they grabbed him by the head. So the shark's got him by his chest, and his shoulder, all the way up his neck and through his face. Takes him and does a death shake for a few seconds and just lets him go and goes on his way. He gets up into the boat and they take him in. He needed 4 surgeons to take 4 hours to do over 600 sutures. He had deep cuts to his neck, to his face. They go all the way down his chest. He had a punctured lung that had deflated, so his lung collapsed. They had to pump that back up, and it went all the way around the back of his shoulder. So he ends up surviving. Sadly, he died later on. Years later, he was out doing what he loves. He was diving, and it sounds like he probably hyperventilated when he was down there, but they don't get into that. He just drowned while he was diving, so a lot of times you'll have hyperventilation. Something freak you out down there, and one of the big dangers of doing that diving. So that's our story of Frank Gallo. We're going to put that down as attack, no attempt to predate, no fatality, and we will move on. Okay, now we're going to head over off the coast of California, off San Francisco. There's Middle Farallon Island. The date is November 11th, 1962. LeRoy French, 24 years old. He and dive partner Al Giddings are taking about 30 divers out to do some spearfishing. So he's taking they're taking the divers out for a few hours probably of fishing, whatever your tanks can last, and then they're going back the same day. It's a one-day excursion. They're in the water, they're separated. Al's got his group, he's got his group, and LeRoy is on his way up to the surface, and he's thinking to himself how far up it is, because he's got this sinking feeling he's being watched. He said when he was down there fishing, didn't see any fish. He was like, it was like something scared him all the way. So he's got this feeling he's being watched, and he's darting his head around, looking behind him, and you can't see very far, 3-4 feet visibility, so it's murky water, you can't see. Finally reaches the surface as he puts his mask up on his head, looks around, sees the boat about 100 meters away, and sees Al Giddings getting onto the boat. So Al Giddings is probably getting on, going to help the rest of the divers. He says that 100 meters isn't far, so he decides he's going to swim over. He has his mask up, he takes his regulator out of his mouth. In his right hand he has his camera housing, and his left hand is just laying next to his body as he's kicking. He's just laying there kicking his way back. He's got 3 dive tanks on that extend outside of his body, and he says for the first time ever he has a dive vest on. He's swimming over to the boat when suddenly he feels a gentle tug to his arm. He looks, he doesn't see nothing over there, and then he decides to look again, and he sees blood in the water. So it bit him, and he didn't even know it was there, and now he's bleeding. A lot of times they don't feel the teeth, they feel pressure, they feel a light tug. This gentle tug, the word gentle, I'm not the one who used it, and if they're doing gentle, that means that's a large shark. I haven't heard gentle from those little 10-footers. Those are the big ones. They do that test bite, just real gently test you out and let go and maybe come back. Well, this one came back. Now he knows he's bleeding, and he's trying to get himself back to the boat, and the shark comes up, grabs him by the forearm. A 15-foot great white grabs him by the forearm and does the death shake. So it's shaking him around. It releases and it goes underneath him, and LeRoy says it grabbed him around the stomach. So it's got the dive vest in the front, and it's got the tanks in the back of its mouth, and trying to put some pressure, but it let go right away, probably because it didn't like the metal in its teeth. It wasn't done yet. Let go of him, went underneath of him, went up and bit him in the right side of his ass. So now he's bit there. Didn't remove any skin that I can tell, but did bite him in the ass. So now is when Al Giddings and everybody notices, because tail's on the top of the water flapping around. They notice what's going on. He says they must have been looking at a nightmare. And so now the shark releases him. He's at the surface. The shark goes down and clamps down on his thigh and starts going down with him. Gets about 5.5 meters, and he's biting harder and harder on his leg, LeRoy said. So he takes his spear and he stabs it 4 times in the head, 4 or 5 times, and it lets go and it disappears. He gets to the top of the water. They get him onto the boat. They get him for help. He survives this, even though he's got wounds on his foot, defensive wounds on the arm, on at least one of his hands. He's got the bitten right side of his ass. It chomped on his thigh, and it bit him in the waist, but it wasn't able to do much damage with the dive vest and the tanks. So he ends up surviving, and we're going to put this down as, I'm putting this one down as an attempt to predate though. That grabbed him by the ass, and then I grabbed him by the thigh and started taking him down. I think it had decided when it bit him and found all that meat, when it grabbed him in the ass, that it was going to go ahead and finish the job and grab him by the thigh. I think the only thing that saved him was beating on it with that spear. So we're going to put this down as an attack, no fatality, but an attempt to predate. We've had 2 or 3 of those where they haven't been fatal. Heather Boswell I put down the same way as an attempt to predate, even though that she got away, but that was a tug of war thing. I think it's the same thing. If he didn't beat on that shark, that's it. So this is going down as a predation attempt, no fatality, and we will move on. Okay, now we're going to head over to Ovongo, which is 80 miles southwest of Durban in South Africa. The date is April 6th, 1958. Faye Bester, 28 years old. She is at the beach and with a bunch of people. There's 500 people, I guess, at the beach, in the water, on the beach. They're doing repairs on the nets that morning. So the owner of the Ovongo Hotel is out there telling people, don't go in the water. It's dangerous. Stay out of the water. They're repairing the nets. Faye Bester doesn't listen. She walks out just around 11 o'clock or prior to it and joins what they say is about 20 people that are standing 20 to 30 meters out into the water in less than a meter of water. So, 3 feet of water or even less. And they're watching the repair of the nets. The owner comes out and warns them all again, get out of the water, it's dangerous, they're fixing the nets. Everybody ignores them, including Faye. And just after that warning, out from a 12-foot deep channel that's just beyond where they're doing the repair of the nets, comes a 10-foot great white. And it's heading right for Faye. She had to have seen it first because the witness on the beach said she heard a scream and turned around and saw the shark hit her in the back and knock her into the water. Or hit her and knock her into the water. Then it grabbed her and threw her up in the air. So the shark hit her, knocked her over, and threw her in the air. There's a bunch of people in the water. Like I said, she's with 20 other people. So they're all slapping the water and shouting at the shark, trying to get it to go away. But the shark ended up turning so fast that the tail hit another woman. I don't know the woman's name, but it hit a woman in the leg, abrasing her leg, so it probably ripped skin off and bruised it pretty good because it's a big size shark for that tail to smack her. So when it was turning, the shark injured somebody else with its tail and went back to bite her. It grabbed her by the waist, pretty much just above the hip, all the way down to like the upper thigh, and took her and started shaking her. Now this is when the people are still slapping the water. Finally it lets her go and it leaves. They get her onto the beach and there's nothing they can do for her. It ripped out a huge chunk of skin, a huge chunk of meat right from above the hip all the way down to the start of the thigh. So a nice chunk of meat is gone and they weren't able to save her. Less than 1 meter of water they were all standing in, and a 10-foot great white gets in there and attacks you. That's stuff of nightmares. We're going to put this down as an attack, a fatality, but not an attempt to predate. If on its own devices without all the people there, maybe it would have eaten her, but we're going by what happened, and right now we're just going to say that it wasn't trying to eat her. So that's our story of Faye Bester, and we will move on to our final segment of the show, You're an Idiot. Okay, now we're going to take care of our provoke segment of the show, You're an Idiot. Today's idiot is named Marvin Estrich, 34 years old. Back in 1966 in July, he was out fishing and brings his boat to port and sounds like he tossed a 4-foot shark over by by the beach or wherever he's at. Because the way I found this is normally I look at these provoked attacks, it'll say what the activity is: swimming, diving. Most of them are fishing, which I don't use, because if you're bit while you're unhooking a fish or while you caught a fish, that's not a real attack. That's you getting bit when you're fishing. So I don't count those. This said killing a shark, so I had to look into it. Well, sure enough, he gets out and he takes his, sounds like a handgun, and shoots the shark 4 times. Doesn't do the job, so I don't know what kind of aim this guy has. Might be upset that he couldn't kill a shark with a gun and 4 bullets, so he grabs the shark, and they say he takes the shark's head and smacks it off of the pilings. Don't know what kind of pilings, if they're cement like I have down in the Keys with the old bridge, or if they're, just rock or whatever it is. But he smacked this shark's head off of something. I don't know how he did it. I doubt he had it by the tail. He probably grabbed it up by the mouth and smacked its head off of it, but that's when he got bit. Shark wasn't dead yet, and grabbed his arm and gave him a good bite. Good enough bite that it severed his artery, and now it sent him for some life-saving help. So as of that night, they didn't get an update on him. They said he was being taken care of, and he was in emergency surgery. But I'm sure that he survived that. And with just an artery, you could probably tourniquet that off, tighten that up, cut the flow, and then get yourself some help and have that sewed up. So, it seems he survived, but, you're going to shoot the shark 4 times, fine, but you can't shoot it in the head, and then it doesn't die, so what is your choice? You pick it up and smack it off of something? I mean, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. I can't say anything else about that. So that's our provoked segment of the show. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you'll be back to join us again. We'll be back in a few days with a full show of attacks, and until then, remember, you go in that water, you are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.